Hello and welcome to my 2,000 kilometer midterm update on the brand new 2021 Giant TCR Advanced Pro 1 disc. Now you might hopefully have seen my first look on this back in the beginning of May, and if you missed that, there's a link to it up above. I've had a lot of questions since I've had this bike, so I want to give you a bit of an update and let you know what this bike has been like to live with and using it as a daily bike, which I have, and I clocked up 2,000 kilometers. I also delivered a first ride after just a week's riding, which if you missed that, that's linked above as well. So I want to find out whether my first ride impressions still stand up after 2,000 kilometers of riding, or if anything has changed. Where to start? Well, the Giant TCR has always been a safe and solid choice if you want a good all-round race performance bike. And this 9th generation bike still lives up to that accolade. It's a really capable bike, got loads of performance, just a really mature, highly evolved product, as you expect for a bike that first launched way back in the mid-90s, when it was a radical reinterpretation of what a road bike should be in terms of frame design and geometry. And it doesn't look as radical as it once did. That's largely because the rest of the bike industry has caught up and emulated to a large degree this compact frame design. And in other areas, they've really gone beyond where Giant is willing to go. Namely drop rear stays, which we're seeing as a trend on many modern road bikes, and more internal cable routing, which on this bike you can see kind of a semi-internal cable routing solution. So as I said, 9th generation model evolved over many iterations. They've kept true to their principle of a stiffness to weight ratio, making it as stiff as possible and as light as possible to get that ratio up in terms of where it competes with key models in this sector like the Specialized Tarmac and the Trek Monda. And it's clear that stiffness is not lacking in this frame at all. In fact, it's one of the stiffest bikes I've ridden in quite a while. If you like giving it the beans all the time, attacking climbs and sprinting for town signs, or just trying to beat your mates in a race to the cafe, you'll love the stiffness of this bike. Now, plenty of stiffness is good, but comfort is something else that really impressed me about this bike. This ability for a race bike, don't forget it's a race bike designed for racing and winning races, to be as smooth as it is has really surprised me, and probably the most impressive feature on this bike. Not something that Giant talks about, it's not something you often associate with a race bike, but the comfort has made this a race bike that you can live with on long rides or everyday rides. Now, while we've seen many manufacturers go down the dropped rear stays in the pursuit of more compliance at the back end, Giant haven't. But somehow, it hasn't impacted the ability of this bike to be incredibly compliant on rough roads. There's an agreeable amount of deflection from this aero-shaped seat post, a nice saddle, and a 25mm wide tyres running at about 70-75 psi gives an incredible ability of this bike to just handle rough roads. Now, when this bike arrived, lockdown was happening here in the UK, which meant I could only go out for one ride a day. Thankfully, we could go for a ride every day, not like Spain and Italy, where they had a total lockdown on riding. So I was able to ride a bike every day, although I'm keen to ride short and staying close to home for obvious reasons. But as the lockdown has been eased, I ventured further forth and done some longer rides on the bike. And I've done some 4 or 5 hour rides, about 150 kilometers, and the bike is so comfortable, even at the end of 4 or 5 hours on the saddle. I've had no back pain, no soreness in the arms, no discomfort from the bike. Not that feeling that this bike is tiring and exhausting on rough roads, like some race bikes can be. It's just so smooth on rough roads and allows you to do a long ride in an agreeable amount of comfort. It won't be as smooth as an endurance bike like the company's own Defy or Domani or Synapse, with bigger tyres and frames designed to provide more compliance, but it really narrows the gap, and I've been quite impressed with how it has narrowed the gap. So comfort has really been an astounding feature of this bike from the first ride to my last ride yesterday. I mentioned stiffness. Handling is fantastic with this bike as well. Got a really quite neutral handling, so steering is not too fast, it's not too slow. Got a nice stability. You've still got a short chainstay, so it's still snappy and easy to corner around tight corners and so on, but it's quite laid back, so it's not too nervous or twitchy. And at the end of those 4 or 5 hour rides, it is really an easy bike to ride. And being an easy bike to ride is something you want in a race bike, so you can concentrate on putting the power out, race tactics and other factors you need to worry about. And the handling It's just, well, they've evolved the handling over 9 generations, and the handling, like many modern road race bikes like the Tarmac or the Super 6 Evo, the handling is spot on. So that nice line between stable and kind of agile is a really sweet spot they've hit with this handling. Something else to talk about as well is the equipment on this bike is stunning for the money. And something else as well, apart from the Shimano Ultegra group set, every single component is Giant branded. That might surprise you, it might not. Many years ago, it was uncommon to get so many own brand components on a bike. It really started happening at the lower end of the market, and then it crept right up to now the high end. So even a top of range bike in the Giant TCR range is fully fitted with Giant branded components, no aftermarket brands at all like we used to see. And it's all good equipment. Got a really nice saddle, this new on-trend stubby nose saddle, really comfortable saddle. Got very nice bar tape, it's cushioned, nice padding, and it's grippy when you're riding without gloves like I prefer. Really nice handlebar, nice shape, short, compact drops. The stem looks good and it's the right length for me, and got a couple of spacers which are shaped to match the frame and stem. Really good wheels. These SLR wheels are excellent. Got a nice aero profile, very fast rolling, low resistance hubs. The free hub engages fairly speedily as well, so not too much lag when you're putting the power down. The rims are tubeless ready as well, and they come with tubeless tyres fitted, and when you buy a bike from Giant, they will be tubeless ready to go from the box, so no faffing around with sealant or valves, ready to go from the shop. I've had no problems at all, no punches, touch wood, through 2,000 kilometers of riding. And another thing about these tubeless tyres and wheels is that they hold air really well, so you don't have to pump up the tyres every morning before a ride, so that's a really nice thing as well. And I swapped the tyres, as you can see. I didn't have too much trouble swapping the tyres over, but more info on that in a future video. And you get a dual-sided power meter as well, which I mentioned in my first look. It's Giant's own design, second generation model, nicely integrated with the Shimano Ultegra crankset, so from the outside you can't see it at all, it's really discreet. The battery ran down after about 1,600 kilometers. Well, I got a low battery warning on my Wahoo Element bolt, so I plugged in the wireless charger, which is really easy to attach. A USB lead on the end to plug into the mains or your laptop, or a battery pack if you're storing in your garage and you've got no electricity. Charge it overnight, and it's been fine since. I've had no issues with the power meter either. Really reliable, really consistent data as well, which you want in a power meter. I've done some comparison with a Kicker trainer at home, and it tracked the power data really well, so no issues with spikes or dropouts, just really consistent and data you can trust, which you want in a power meter. So far, so rosy. I've not had any issues with the bike, as I mentioned, not even a puncture, touch wood. I've had to top up the battery in the power meter, that was easy. On to negatives. Well, if I'm being really fussy, it's a cable routing. Now, I don't really mind it, to be honest. I don't mind the looks of it. And there are pros in terms of you use a normal stem and handlebar, you're not tied into an integrated solution, which is a nightmare to take apart or change the stem length or handlebar width. So that's a definite bonus. And I've had no issues with the cables rattling or rubbing the frame or anything like that, so no issues at all. The only issue really when you're riding along and you look down and you see two big curves of gear cable going outside of the frame. But would it put me off buying the bike or recommending the bike to you based on that? Well, no, of course not. The cable routing isn't a problem in terms of mechanical operation, it works fine. And I mentioned the pros in terms of being able to change the stem and the handlebar and packing the bike away if you're going traveling, when we can do that in the future, hopefully. Downsides are it just doesn't look as neat as having all the cables inside, which I appreciate, and you get tired of people saying about the cable sticking outside. And there's a clear divide in the comment section around the cable routing. Some people really want internal cable routing, and some people much prefer the simplicity of the external cable routing, so a real divide. But I must admit, seeing some bikes with all the cables inside does look more modern than this. And that really is the biggest bugbear with the bike, and it's not really a negative because there are pros to it as well, but it's clearly something that divides opinion, and I'm sure you'll let me know down in the comment section below what you think of the cable routing. The other potential issue could be the bottom bracket. Now we see a lot of hate for press fit in the comment sections on websites around the world. Personally, I've not had any problems with press fit. Even my old Super 6 Evo, which is 10 years old, I've never had a creaking bottom bracket on it at all. So personally, I've not had any issues, touch wood. I know lots of people have though. Now, Giant use a BB86 bottom bracket, which they've used for many years and they used on the previous TCR, and they tell me they have no problems with it at all, no complaints from customers. And indeed, when you look around the internet on forums, you don't see a Giant cropping up in all their complaints about press fit bottom brackets. There seems to be certain other brands and certain other bottom bracket standards. So that's one thing covered. And in my 2,000 kilometers, I've not had a squeak or creak or pip out of that bottom bracket, so no problems at all. But we're just seeing a bit of a trend back to external threaded bottom brackets from some manufacturers, and definitely quite a lot of you do want a threaded bottom bracket. But whether that's enough to influence your buying decision is another matter. For me personally, that would not put me off at all. I'd happily buy a bike with this press fit, no problem at all. You may feel differently though, and I'm sure you'll let me know down in the comment section. So radical bike back then, not as radical looking now, and in a way I think it looks really good because you don't have the drop rear stays, which are proving to be a Marmite love or hate thing. So it's still got a classic look for a bike that was radical when it first launched, which I like. Slightly sloping top tube. The rear stays are still dropped comparatively, but they're not as dramatic as some bikes. And while they have added aerodynamics where possible with the shaping of the profiles of the tubes, it doesn't look too extreme. It's still got a nice, fairly traditional, simple look, which I love of my Super 6 Evo, which I've shown you in previous videos. So a modern, traditional look, if that makes any sense. So I think that just about sums up my 2,000 kilometer midterm update on a Giant TCR Advanced Pro on disc. I will do a final review soon. I just want to give you a bit more feedback, a bit of insight into what the bike has been like to live with for the last month and a bit, and 2,000 kilometers. I've been using this bike as a daily bike, and I do ride a bike every single day. I've got quite a few test bikes on the go at the moment, but this is a bike more often than not that I reach for. It's lightweight, it's stiff, responsive, it's got good comfort. I love all the equipment on it, good saddle, power meter, nice bar tape, everything on it just works really well. And I love the attention to detail on the bike, that every single component is just spot on. I've not really had to change anything. The tyre is probably the only area that I would consider upgrading if I want to spend a bit more money to get a bit more performance, eke a bit more speed and smoothness out of the bike, which I'll touch on in a future video update in a bit more depth really. I think tyres are definitely a key to unlocking a bit more performance from the bike. With all that said, I think that's covered everything. I'm sure you got a few questions on this bike, so don't hesitate to get down in the comment section below and ask away, and I'll do my best to answer them. Like I said, there'll be a full review coming out soon, but so far it's definitely a big thumbs up. I'm liking it a lot. Been a fantastic bike to ride for the last 2,000 kilometers, and here to another 2,000 kilometers, hopefully, if Giant let me hold on to it for that long. With all that said, just leave me to say thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe for more tech content like this, including a first ride on that Trek Domani SLR. But that's all for now. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, keep pedaling, and I'll see you all again soon.